The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by 2T Fitness and the Vegas Beer Guys.
The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. You have been forewarned.
Sequel podcast. This is the Poltergeist edition. Michael Shantz here. I'm from the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, as always, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hi, Tom.
They're back!
Super famous line.
I think we need to add modified catchphrases to our ever-growing list of imbasses.
Yeah.
Because there's one in each of these movies. And not to blow the surprise, but we have a screenwriter guest on today. It'll say in the show notes on today's
Exactly.
show, and I love these because they make me feel like a screenwriter because I can guess them.
Right.
I guessed them right both times.
Well, Tom alluded to it. Joining us once again, screenwriter Matthew Aldrich. Hello, Matt.
Hey guys, thank you for having me back. I'm very excited to be here, and this is a good bookend to my last time here, I think.
It absolutely is. Matt is the co-writer of Coco. The last time he was on, we did the 1982 single sequels, and that gave birth to an idea for him and I to embark on the 1982 project, a podcast in which we take a look at movies from 1982, and the original Poltergeist is one of those movies.
Absolutely. I mean, the 1982 project is, it's a chance to look at movies that are 40 years old in sort of the cold light of day. And the thing about 1982 and why it's so important to the work that you two are doing here about examining sequels is that 1982 has given birth to so many franchises, and these movies, the movies of 1982, are disproportionately being sequeled, rebooted, and or revered. There's something weird that happened. There's something weird in the water that year. It gave us movies like 48 Hours, Officer and a Gentleman, Conan the Barbarian, E.T., Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Rocky III, The Secret of Nim, Poltergeist, The Thing, Star Trek II, Tootsie, The Verdict, The World According to Garp, Das Boot, The Year of Living Dangerously, The
My
Dark
head's
Crystal.
starting to spin.
There is no shortage of amazing titles, and these titles are titles that have continued to live on, and so I think it's really fun now to look at a film like Poltergeist, which was, like a lot of these movies of 1982, just sort of I wouldn't say a humble film, but a film that was not designed to launch 1,000 ships.
Correct.
Yet,
absolutely
here we
right. Right, and that's why this is sort of the perfect bookend for you to come back and for us to talk about these sequels to Poltergeist, which did not disappoint. Wow.
Although there are some pretty weird waters in these movies.
Oh, God, yeah. That's what I'm talking about, the weirdness of them.
And you're right. And you're right, Matt. It is work.
It is. It's work.
Yeah.
And
it is work doing this podcast.
Well, here's the thing. So I've been listening to your show, and I'll say this: like, I've been lucky enough in my career to work on a couple sequels and to kind of be in the room as very smart people are debating like what makes a good sequel and why even bother making a sequel and all of this. And you guys, the work that you guys have done, I don't know if anybody has thought about this issue as much as you, and I have been in the room with people who have thought about this issue. And I think you guys have come up with a vernacular, and you have come up with a way of viewing sequels that is really unique and insightful, and it makes me. So when I watch these two movies, I was sort of watching it after having been educated by you guys, and I could see. I could see
is the word you're looking for.
Maybe,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, maybe, yeah. Inculcated
Cult leaders here.
Anyway, I was saying, like, I was watching these movies, and for as batshit as they sometimes got, I saw the thinking behind them.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
I could
really glad to
recognize-
hear you say that. Cause,
Yeah, I am too, because that was my biggest note for both of these movies. That you could see an idea, kind of a through line of an idea, but that's constantly failing as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I think this is a really interesting series, because I feel
It
like
is.
it's almost like a bait and switch. Like they've you have this movie of Poltergeist, which, you know, Mike, you and I kind of unpack that movie on one of our episodes,
Right.
And you know, my memory of that episode, as foggy as it is that we both generally liked the movie, thought it held up, and
Yes.
appreciated it in new ways after, like, watching it.
That
with
was the big
2022
thing,
eyes.
was, yeah, watching it. The things you appreciated when you watched it when you were 10 or even young, you know, it was different. You were there to see the guy peel the skin off his own face and that kind of stuff when you're 10 years old. When you watch it as an adult, you see that it's a story for Jo Beth Williams. You know, it's a story about
Yeah.
the mom. It's a story about motherhood.
and it's a story about a family staying together, even though it's
Right.
it's a kidnapping story.
Yeah.
Structurally, the first movie is a kidnapping story. And so what's crazy is that the sequels have taken it out of theme, taking it out of genre. They have
Right.
completely spun it into a direction that left the original completely in the dirt. In an attempt to recapture lightning in a bottle, they went after the different lightning, or they had a broken bottle. I don't know. Like, there was something sort of so fundamentally, like, day one, what they had wrong about what was good about Poltergeist, and then they built the sequels upon this poison fruit. You know.
It's interesting. I mean, I've got a slightly different take, and this is a fascinating. I agree that this is a fascinating series. Without getting too specific before we rank and declare, I think you have, you know, this is the second part of our trilogy of trilogies series, and we have two movies here. One of which I think is making all the right choices as a sequel and has a lot of solid storytelling, but doesn't quite add up as a genre movie or as a movie in its own right. And then you have another movie that is kind of groping towards being a decent standalone genre film, but is on very shaky grounds as a sequel. So, in terms of ranking and declaring, I don't know what to do with these movies.
Oh, me either.
It speaks to so much of what we've talked about, but I also have to decide what I value more.
Yeah, seeing them, trying to judge them as individual films is very difficult.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, the original looms so large in my mind.
Yes.
That it's hard to forget that original and look at it, as you say, like as a straight genre film, like,
yeah,
out of context. Is this movie a good movie, or how successful is it compared to the other movie? I mean, I think for me it wasn't hard, but now that you're saying it's hard, I might have misjudged.
And you know the other, I guess the other layer of difficulty is production, right? With these two movies, because these are, particularly one of them is a very troubled production.
Yeah.
And
One of them.
yeah, I guess
This is a movie series where the storylines of the sequels were defined by who passed away since the last movie.
right.
Not
but
just
in only
that,
one of
but-
those films did someone actually die on set. But
the cast for at least one of these sequels insisted on an actual exorcism taking place because they were freaked out.
right. So yeah,
That's
I
how
mean,
bad shit this series is.
Well, the elephant in the room is that, you know, the folklore around this, the entire original Poltergeist series is that it's cursed, and you know,
Yes.
you can easily debunk that with the tiniest amount of research. But what is no exaggeration to say is that the body count of this series is as large off screen as it is on.
Right.
I mean, that's just, you know, those
Probably
are just
larger.
probably larger. Depends on how many skeletons you factor into that.
Right.
But yeah, we have between and it's across the series, which makes it fascinating to our purposes. This is not a cursed film; these are cursed films.
Yeah.
So Dominique Dunne from the original movie
Correct.
dies in between the first and the second movie. She is then erased from the history of the franchise, which is fascinating.
And bewildering.
out of quote respect.
Yes. Then they hire Julian Beck, a man
Right.
with stomach cancer.
Yeah,
Sorry.
this is where the curse theory kind of breaks down, isn't it?
That's-
This is where you're like, you're asking for this.
You're telling me that Poltergeist 2 is cursed because you hired a man with stomach cancer and he died? That was kind of a given.
There's a great documentary on Shudder, I think it is, called Cursed Films, and Poltergeist. There's an episode on Poltergeist, and there's a couple of ways in which they debunk it. First of all, you know, the amount of information you have to ignore and be selective about to call this a cursed series is huge,
Right.
right? I mean, because you know, you have to sort of contend that Steven Spielberg never worked again, and
Yeah.
Craig T. Nelson only had 3 more hit TV series.
Yeah, right.
But also the curse is supposedly based around them using actual skeletons,
Right.
in the cemetery scenes in the original movie, which of course is industry practice. No one builds a skeleton. Everyone just buys them from hospitals. So anytime you see a skeleton on screen in a movie, unless it's part of some very elaborate practical effect, is a real skeleton. So
I didn't know that. That chills me to the bone.
Oh yeah. I mean, otherwise it's just too expensive to make your own skeleton when there are these freely available skeletons in medical schools that you can just buy.
So this brings me to a parenthetical as we talk about appropriating dead bodies for entertainment.
Yeah.
Parenthetically, I just watched Weekend at Bernie's 2 last night. Based on your recommendations. I don't want to get off on a tangent here,
Go for it.
but
This is if not here, where?
But I'll just say this: like you guys, I had to buy it
Yeah.
on
Oh, we know.
Amazon.
Oh, we know.
And when
Did
it was
you go
over,
HD?
no, I didn't. I did the standard def. So
That's
it was
one
like
of those sane people, Mike.
$6.99 or $7.99. And when it was over, I seriously did this. I went to see if I could return the movie.
Yeah.
Like if I could sell it back, essentially. Which was renting. I guess I retroactively wanted to rent it, but I looked for a button that said returns. They didn't have one. So now I own it. And I guess I will digitally until I don't know, until I die, until it's weekend at Matt's.
Until we're until you're dancing under the water with an arrow through your head, looking for treasure.
Enjoy it in good health.
If any movie or movie series should be cursed, should be that one.
Right.
There's the level of disrespect to the human body,
Yep.
to culture, to race, to like the level of disrespect across the board. Like they don't even respect coroners in that movie.
Yeah, right.
They don't respect police. They don't respect baggage handlers. They don't respect hotel staff. They don't. Everyone is treated with such disdain and flippancy that for me, watching that movie was it was like I all I say is if you have a hard time wrapping your brain around what white male privilege is, just watch Weekend at Bernie's 2, and you'll get the idea. You'll get what makes everybody so.
It's
mad.
all there on screen.
Let's say Rodney Dangerfield would have a field day with the lack of respect in this movie. Yeah, I think I don't know if we did it on air, but I think we speculated on the or as I certainly speculated that that the Trump children saw this movie early on in their lives and assumed this is how you should act in the world.
It essentially is.
Yeah.
That's how bumbling. But like, they're just two guys who can like stumble their way into finding $1 million in cash.
Absolutely.
Like it's essentially the Trump children. They just accidentally find a rounding error of $1 million in cash and immediately spend it on a boat with an all Playmate Bunny crew and say take us to Monaco, which they're about to do an ocean crossing. They're in the Virgin Islands and they're about to cross an ocean with an inexperienced crew. I don't think they ever made it. I think they're sank.
Well, you go.
I think that's what the cartoon at the end should have shown. It was a really, really bad movie.
I think that cartoon of Bernie's lifeless head with an arrow through it is bleak enough without an entire ghost ship in the middle of it.
It is. I want to make a movie one day where I just have the head of a corpse sitting in the corner as the credits roll.
Yeah, and try and sell it
as an homage.
And try to sell it as a comic button. That's the thing. I guess.
No, you put that in a horror film. That's the point, and you homage Bernie's as a horror film. Anyway,
well, it would be. I think it would be a better horror film than at least one of these movies.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, let's go even further. Weekend at Bernie's 2 is a better horror sequel.
It's a better horror film
than one of these movies. Possibly even both of them.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It was horrifying.
All right. I got a question for the two of you. One of the things I was wondering was, did you see these movies in the theater? Did you remember these movies? What did you remember of these movies? Anyone?
I've never seen nor heard of these movies before.
Really? Okay.
Oh, your new eyes.
Yeah, completely. I had zero expectations going into them, and
they were met.
and I was equally confused when I left the last one. Yeah, I mean it's just. I think my awareness of it came from everything but the films themselves. You know, I was aware, not quite to the extent that it's actually true, but I was aware that a lot of people died in order for these films to be made. And and that there was an air of tragedy around them. I knew the Heather O'Rourke story. I knew that the director of the movie wanted to pull the plug after she died, and the studio wouldn't let him and forced him to finish the movie. All of which is abundantly clear on screen.
Right.
But beyond that, no, I did not know what to expect, and both these movies took me in directions I really wasn't expecting. In completely different ways. And I'm grateful for that variety, but as I said, I don't really know what to do with that in terms of judgment and evaluation.
Yeah.
I'm glad they weren't the same movie, and I'm glad neither of them were Poltergeist. But
Right.
beyond that, I'm struggling.
To answer your question, Mike, I didn't see either of these in the movie theater. I did see Poltergeist 2 many times on, like we taped it off of TV.
Yeah.
And so I watched that movie a lot, more so than I think I remembered, because as I was watching it this time, I was like, oh my God, I remember an astounding amount of this film. It was all coming back to me as I was watching it.
Interesting.
But I'd never seen Poltergeist 3 before.
Oh, okay.
Before just a few days ago when I watched it here. I think by that point, it was 1980. That came out in 86, I think.
Which one?
Poltergeist 3 was 86 or
88.
88. 88. Yeah, by 88, I just wasn't interested. I just didn't get to the movie theater at that point.
Yeah.
And I probably had heard it wasn't that good, and so I didn't bother with it.
Yeah.
That was it. And then like you said, Tom, like there was by 88, Heather O'Rourke had passed away, young and tragically, and that was in the ether, and I think it was kind of like a Candyman ghost story,
right?
Yeah, right.
At that point, and so
don't see 3 of these movies or Candyman.
Yeah. I think it was just like there was like a specter hanging over that movie that I just didn't I didn't go near it.
Yeah.
What about you, Mike? Had you seen these?
I'd seen them. I did not have.
So I don't even ask these days, man. I know it's terribly impolite, but I feel like I know the answer before I even ask.
Any movie since 1982, really.
Yeah.
You could ask him if he saw Serpico, and he'd be like, I don't know. I don't know if I've seen Serpico. American Gigolo? Anything? Nothing? But from 1982 on, Mike's a solid yes.
Yeah, I know.
90% of the time.
Let's let him answer. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're unfairly caricaturing. Mr.
So the thing that was funny to me was that I had seen both of them, but I did not have Highlander to the quickening level remembrance. The thing.
I hope you know, Matt, this is the gold standard of Mike's movie memories, which I can't believe is not somehow not its own minisode.
You should do an episode, Mike, where you act out Highlander 2, front to back, from memory, no notes.
He remembered the cold open from memory.
But that's what I'm saying. You guys should just do a episode where it's just Mike acting out Highlander 2 without any notes.
I asked him what happens in Highlander 2, and he gave me word for word the cold open of the movie. Like the opening scroll is not the cold open. The opening scroll is what he gave me.
I made it seem like I didn't remember much, and then I went down to details like, and Sean Connery, I remember he appears and he kind of.
Well, speaking of Sean Connery, it's a very Bond-like move to say, what do you know about X? And it's gone, oh, well, not very much, really, except that, the microchip goes into the hole and the world explodes.
So,
and this brandy is from 1974.
What I remembered from Poltergeist 2 was Kane. That was my
Oh,
biggest
no
memory.
wonder. No wonder. I
Was
mean,
the old man.
He still haunts me now, and I only saw this movie 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I remembered from Poltergeist 3, my biggest memories were Tom Skerritt, like Tom Skerritt being involved.
that is one of the best summations of this movie. Tom Skerritt was involved. That's brilliant, Mike. That is absolutely brilliant.
And the snowy
It's like
garage.
Sums
like
up
you're
about
giving
a page
a-
of my notes.
It's like you're giving a statement to a cop after an
Yeah.
accident.
Tom Skerritt was involved. There was a lot
Tom
going
Skerritt-
on with mirrors. I think he's Kane, but he doesn't look anything like Kane.
So that I remember that and a snowy garage.
Oh, the ice garage.
Yeah, that's what I remembered.
Well, I think you've actually got
You've
the
summed it
best
up.
of these movies.
Yeah.
Kane, Tom Skerritt, Ice Garage.
Yeah.
I think we can end it there.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Well, I believe now is the time. Any thoughts you want to get out before ranking and declaring on the Poltergeist sequels? Easy, difficult? I mean, we kind of talked about it already, but
Yeah. Difficult.
I thought it was easy until I started this conversation.
so
Which does not mean it's not easy.
right. That makes me curious, Matt. I mean, what was your initial thought? Are you starting to waver, or you standing pat?
I'm starting to waver only because I'm seeing that, I'm definitely comparing them to the original, and so when you compare them to the original, the ranking and declaring is quite easy.
Yeah.
But when you when you try to take them as individual meals, it's kind of like, what are you in the mood for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because they are so different, and but what's so maddening about these movies too is that in order to understand what the hell is going on, you need to have seen the other movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So they are quite dependent on the original, and 3 is quite dependent on 2, and so
Yeah.
they kind of can't stand alone. They don't give me enough to stand on their own. So to try to judge them as individual things is
Well,
now
and
it's
it's hard for me to wrestle with what you value more, say, between the choices of getting the band back together or having surrogates
Mm.
in place.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, you have to judge which one did that better.
Yeah.
You know?
Agreed.
So
I
was
think that-
was it successful at what it tried to do?
And that's ultimately that dependence on the original movie as a kind of default position is ultimately where both these movies falter, but again in very different ways.
Yeah, right.
And I think one of these movies is better at handling that dynamic than the other, which is where I fell down on this. But I also I think there's
It's razor thin for me, though.
it's
It
interesting
really
what
is.
Matt said about watching Poltergeist 2 a lot, because I have a sort of working theory that a lot of what people think Poltergeist comes from as much from the sequel as it does from the movie itself.
Mm.
Even the line.
I think people have confused these two movies
Yeah.
in popular memory.
When I first saw Kane, I remember being surprised that Kane wasn't at all in the first movie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
not at all. He was total retcon.
Yeah.
He is. Yeah, he's a total retcon, but
And even her
interestingly, not as
line,
much as a retcon as even I thought before I went into this movie.
in popular culture, her line, "They're back," is more popular than "They're here."
I have to see the data on that. They're here is like It's in all the like the lists of like most memorable 100
It is, but
lines from 100 movies.
but in
that kind of thing.
popular culture, their back was used more. There was a note in IMDb about it.
Well, first of all, IMDb's description of this movie contains at least one grievous factual error, but we'll get there.
Wow.
But I think what you're both speaking to is this sort of slippage with the catchphrases in terms of diegetic and non-diegetic, right?
Right.
It's like are we like when it gets referenced again, it's as much about the fame of the line outside of the movie as it is what it means within the movie.
Yeah.
And that's why it's kind of interesting what people remember about these, and I have specific examples of this we'll talk about when we do the episodes, but what people remember about these movies is not what happens in these movies. That is for damn sure.
Yeah, it's funny how even Poltergeist, the original, when I sat down and watched it for the 1982 project, there was a surprising amount that I remembered, but then there was this whole other movie that I had forgotten.
Right. Yeah.
Embedded in it, and I think that's what you're saying is that our collective memory of Poltergeist and our collective experience of liking Poltergeist together generated a nostalgia for it. That, and like all nostalgias, like if you ever go to like a 50s themed cafe, it's not really what a cafe looked like in the 1950s. It's sort of our idealized
memory. Unless they
memory.
were way ahead of the trend and they were already doing a 50s nostalgia cafe in the 50s.
Right. I want to open a cafe called Cafe 2022.
Exactly.
And it'll be so now.
It'll be Nowtro. It'll be the definition of Nowtro.
But no, I think, and this is, for the films of 1982, this is kind of what we see again and again. This tremendous nostalgia for these titles, and then the subsequent efforts to try to sequel them or reboot them or to translate them to series or to Broadway or any of these other mediums that we see. The films from the early 80s and specifically from 1982. So Poltergeist not only got these two sequels, but there was a TV series. Yeah. There was a reboot in 2015. And then as recently as 2019, they announced the Russo brothers doing some kind of sequel / reboot of the title. Like this title's not going away. Reboot of the reboot. Yeah. This title's not going away. And I don't think it ever will go away.
Which is also fascinating when the folklore is about how cursed it is as a franchise.
I think that's part of the reason why it doesn't go away. Honestly. I think that's part of our nostalgia and part of
that's definitely part of the nostalgia, but
I think it's part of the mystique. It's like it's the flame that we're drawn to. It's like it's such a scary movie that people died in the making of it, which is not true.
It's a real life Ring.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's great. All right. Who wants to go first?
Not me.
Tom?
Sure, yeah. I was going to let the guest go first, but unless you want to go first, Mike?
Oh, I want to hear what you have to say.
Oh, God, okay. So what are we starting with? We're starting with ranking?
Ranking, yeah, let's rank.
Okay. So top of my list is Poltergeist 2: The Other Side.
All right. Now, was that difficult?
I don't know. I think this is maybe my only automatic decision in this whole process was that this is definitely top of the pile. This admittedly very small pile. Yeah.
All right.
I mean that was an easy call to make. I think I think
it wasn't easy for me.
Really? Well,
Yeah.
I just think I don't know, when you put these two movies side by side, one looks more accomplished than the other. I mean, I think it
I
really
agree
comes
with
down
that
to
completely, and that's so. I'll just let my cat out of the bag. Poltergeist 2, The Other Side, is the top of my list, but the overt racism throughout the movie is it was so grating that I wanted to strike the movie down. But it's
I want to strike the movie down for other reasons, and I will. But that doesn't mean I still think.
but
I think it's a better product than.
that's
Poltergeist
where I
3.
came out. It felt like it was better made. It felt like, I don't know, but like the stuff with the mirrors, those are interesting ideas to me in Poltergeist 3. I kind of liked that stuff. And that one kind of, like, it raised the level of that one up for me a bit.
To me, it's a better horror movie, Poltergeist 3, which is what kills me
Yeah.
about what kills me about putting it at the bottom of the list is that it's a far better horror movie than Poltergeist 2, The Other Side. I just think overall Poltergeist 2 is a more solidly made movie, but it's a terrible horror movie.
I think you might
Maybe
have,
one of the worst I've ever seen.
I think you might have hit the nail on the head there.
But anyway, let's hear from
Now
from Matt.
I'm waffling more than ever. When I started watching Poltergeist 3, I thought there's no way they could have made a worse movie than Poltergeist 2. I was like, there's no way they could have done it. And then as I watched Poltergeist 3 unspool in front of me, I thought, holy shit, they actually did. They made a worse movie than Poltergeist 2, because Poltergeist 2, for as much as I appreciate the creepiness of Kane, it is such a just such a series of wrong turns and failures.
Yes.
That and half ideas.
Thank you.
And just feels more like a land grab than anything. And as you say, Tom, like, it is the least scary horror movie.
Really?
And just really, like,
I also don't know how you do that with H.R. Geiger as your conceptual artist, but you know, that's
right. They
another-
get H.R.
Right.
Geiger for the conceptual artist, but then they cut all of his work except two things.
Except for two things, right?
Which looks so out of place in the rest of the movie, the production design of the rest of the movie.
True.
If it had been like all Geiger all the time, maybe. But
It's a great radio station. All Geiger all the time. Coming at you. All Geiger all the time.
I don't know.
At the 20 and the 40, we got more Geiger coming at you.
I think oh boy, I can't even. I have to like just hedge and hem and qualify. I think Poltergeist 2 is a better Poltergeist movie.
That's the
like
other
you,
thing. It
Tom?
feels like effects and stuff like that in Poltergeist 2 harkens back to the original Poltergeist. And Poltergeist 3 doesn't do that. But I think Tom's right. Poltergeist 3 is a better horror movie. Because Poltergeist 2 is not scary at all.
I don't think Poltergeist 3 is scary either. Like, let's be honest. Like,
Yeah.
but it has the better idea for a horror film. It has the better mechanics of a horror film. I come down to, like, this is going to sound, but so I agree with you, Mike. Like, the overt racism and the omnipresent racism in Poltergeist 2.
Tough to take.
It's tough to take, and it makes it a really easy target. There's actually just as much racism in Poltergeist 3, but it's not front and center. I don't think. Like,
that's true.
There's a lot of stereotyping going on in Poltergeist 3 too. Like, they didn't suddenly wake up. So the things though that I keep coming back to, the two moments where I really started to throw eggs at the TV for both movies was the ending. The endings of both movies were so bad and sloppy.
Also, they contradict each other.
Oh, completely contradict each other. And It's and so I look at all else being equal, I look at those two endings, those two terrible endings, and I say which one was the better terrible ending. And I think Poltergeist 2 is the better terrible ending. So I'm going to put Poltergeist 2 ahead of Poltergeist 3.
All right. Wow, we're all on the same page.
Is it a better movie? Yeah.
And by default, Poltergeist 3 goes to the end of all of our lists.
Yeah.
It just depends on your criteria.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say earlier is like, what do you value? What's most important to you? What do you want a sequel to be? What does the sequel give you?
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so much in these two movies that you can compare and contrast that it you can start to not be able to see the forest through the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Completely. Yeah.
If Poltergeist 3 had not been a Poltergeist movie, like you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Well, this is interesting. The last time
it might be a good movie.
It's interesting to hear you say that, Matt, as well, given our discussion about Halloween 3. Because I spent the entirety of Poltergeist 3 thinking this would completely work as an anthology movie.
Yes.
Right.
It totally would.
This is what this needs to be. And I wonder how much the adverse reaction to Halloween 3, both critically and commercially,
and from Matt,
prevented them from making that extra step, because essentially what they want to do is a supernatural version of J.G. Ballard's High Rise, and you don't need the Poltergeist legacy cast to do that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You don't even have 80% of your legacy cast anyway.
Right.
The guy the ghost you want to hang this on is the actor died.
Dead. Right.
So everything sort of makes you think this would be a perfect anthology vehicle. You just use the banner Poltergeist and make a completely new story. But I just wonder how much this is just because of market concerns. They would never do that. But artistically and generically, it seems It seems like the way to go with the story you want to do. Why you want to do the story, I'm not quite sure. But
right.
this is what it's clear when you're watching the movie what they wanted to, the idea that they wanted to execute, but they didn't need the franchise to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They just needed the name Poltergeist.
And if I remember correctly, it was Gary Sherman, the director of Poltergeist 3, who insisted on all of that. He was like, I want to be in Chicago. I want it to be in this building. All of that was him.
Yeah, he read High Rise. Clearly. Yeah. I mean, that's what that movie is, or wants to be. But it's kind of, it has to, it is hamstrung by the fact that we've got to get in Carol Ann and Tangina.
Yeah.
And there's got to be some extrapolation from the last two movies in there.
Right.
When you don't have the characters on screen to even tell that story.
You just made the second half of this ranking and declaring very easy by just reminding me of what's in these movies. I'm sorry. I was really in my head earlier. I know exactly. I'll start right now. Both these movies are bad. They're bad. Both of these movies, straight up, bad movies.
That part's not difficult for me either. It was the ranking that's difficult. I'm more like you now, Matt. Like, I want to hedge and hem and haw a little bit, because there are things that I want to stick up for in both of these movies. And there's a through line in the movies where I think, there are ideas behind them, but like you said, especially Poltergeist 2, half ideas, things thrown at the wall that don't stick, that they don't go with. And in that way, they both kind of fail as complete movies on their own for me. So I'm the same. I think they both officially are bad movies.
All right.
Uh-oh.
Good for you both. So I think when this podcast started, I would agree totally with both of you about this question. But since I've been talking for 2 years now about sequels, I've watched a range of sequels. I have a renewed appreciation for the utilitarian sequel. How hard it is to even make that kind of a movie, the kind of craft that goes into making the most basic sequel to a movie. And I also think there are certain historical contexts in which that is more impressive than others. I think the earlier you're able to pull that off, the more impressive your movie is. I think if you do that in 2003, it's not as impressive as doing it in the middle of the 1980s, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So, for the sheer sequel craft, I'm going to call Poltergeist 2 The Other Side a good movie.
Okay.
Which kills me because I consider myself a horror fan, and this is abysmal horror filmmaking of the highest order. Poltergeist 3, I think... Yeah, I mean, I think for the same reason, it is just not justifiably a sequel in this series.
Mm-hmm.
I completely see what they want to do with this, but they haven't really executed it beyond a few decent kind of horror tricks and devices here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it doesn't. I'm gonna say that's a bad movie, but to be honest, this is right on the line for me. You know, I think
They both are for me.
between good and bad.
Yeah, like if 50.1% is, say, the mark of you like 50.1% of the movie is enough to say that it's a good movie, I'm at, I'm at 50%. I'm at 49.5. Like, that's how close I am on both of them. Because like you, there are... I see sequel ideas behind both of them that, to me, make sense. Like, if you're going to do a surrogate movie, this makes sense. Poltergeist 3, what they do. It still involves family. It's nonsensical. It's totally ridiculous that those parents would send this girl away. But once you accept that as a given, and you put her in the high-rise, and she's in Chicago, and then you add this interesting aspect of the mirrors and all of that shit, like, there's enough there for me to almost say this is interesting enough to be a good movie. And it's like, I see a basic competence from both directors that make me think, well, they can make a good movie, but they just don't quite get there on both of these films. Like, just shy of it.
Right. And, the last act of both of these movies, the last, I don't know, half hour, they both suck really badly.
Yeah.
Really badly.
Yeah.
But
I sort of
see. I think
Poltergeist 3 goes on forever.
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
I think it's shorter though.
I know.
No,
it's longer.
It's longer. It's longer by 7 minutes.
But was there a cartoon dead head in the corner of the credits?
Yeah, right.
Look,
that would have got me through. Tom Skerritt and Nancy Allen slowly walking around a parking garage for 20 minutes.
That was like this movie's version of Underwater.
Right, absolutely. But all the the strength of the idea is it's an hour. It's an idea that lasts for about an episode of television as well. That's the other kind of point.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's an hour of a good there's an hour of a good movie in here, which means it's probably best done as a TV anthology drama. Because that last half hour, and whether that's Heather O'Rourke dying and that screwing everything up, or also the film is just distasteful. It should never have been. I'm totally with Gary Sherman. This film should not have been released out of respect. The series idea of what constitutes respect is sort of, but let's pretend this
Bizarre.
character never existed because the actress died. However, we're definitely going to complete filming on this movie where the actor died on during filming. I mean, it's ludicrous. So,
well, and as I understand it, the movie had finished filming, and then they wanted to redo the ending.
Yeah.
And then she died.
Right.
And then they filmed with a stand-in. I mean, that's why you're seeing, I am assuming, just, a blonde hair streaking in front of the screen.
Right. And
for a solid 25
scene
minutes
you don't
of
need
just
in the movie,
yeah,
by the
it's
way.
just ridiculous.
A scene that absolutely has no reason to be in the movie. Nor does anything in the last act of the movie really need to happen. So, yeah, again, it comes down to Poltergeist 2 just kind of it rides out those 90 minutes better.
Mm.
It's a very flawed 90-minute movie. It's 90, and I Poltergeist 3. I might even go as far as saying it's not a feature-length movie. It doesn't even really constitute that. So I don't know if I could ever call it a good movie.
All right. Well,
I
there
don't know.
you have it.
I totally agree. And when I sat down to watch these movies, my wife was like, well, what are you watching?
What are you doing?
What's the matter with you?
This isn't even a 1982 movie. You can't pull this shit on me.
Exactly. She said, what are you watching? I said, I'm watching the Poltergeist sequels because I'm going to do an episode with Mike and Tom. And these were her words to me. This is a direct quote. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of I was like, yeah, she was right. She was right. If you want to watch these movies, good luck with that.
Yeah.
She knew she had it pegged.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sight unseen.
Yeah.
No, she was right.
All right.
No, I think these are going to be good. No, they weren't.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more about it.
I think one of them is fine.
I will say,
and
this,
the other one could have been fine.
Yeah, I think they're
with
both...
a little bit of recutting.
I think yes. I mean, I think there's a lot of talk about this being on the line and 49% versus 51%. I will say though that both of these movies are kind of batshit crazy, and in a whether they're good or bad, it was an entertaining watch because I honestly, it was that kind of filmmaking, not in a good way. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but not in a good way.
Right.
I was like, holy shit, this is insane what they're trying to do here.
Yeah.
And I was quite glad to have watched these, even though I don't think they're good movies. I think they were still fun to watch.
That was actually, now that you say that was something I experienced too, where I finished both movies and I thought, I don't think I can call these good movies, but I'm not mad at the movies. I like you said, they're fairly entertaining. Like that you can sit down and somewhat enjoy these movies.
I think when we get in Poltergeist 2, when we get to the subtitle part of the movie, the other side, I was getting Weekend at Bernie's 2 vibes there. When we got to the other sides, I was like, this is remarkable what's happening on screen right now. It's nothing to do with quality. Like
Right.
the choices, all of the choices that are making all at once
Yeah.
in the last act of this movie.
Yeah.
In the last act of
out of nowhere is kind of remarkable, and I think that's what I've got that in my head. So when I get to Poltergeist 3 and it's just Tom Skerritt and Nancy Allen, like walking slower than wax around a parking garage, I'm like, okay, well, I know which one is more arresting and interesting to absorb. One movie's clearly treading water, and the other one has decided to sort of throw out the book at this point. So I got to give them credit for that.
One decides to show me a full 8 minutes of them getting on a window washer's rig and it going down the side of a building.
It takes so long. I mean, we're literally doing a tour of the building at that point, right? There's no story.
Yeah.
It's just
I kind of have expected. I have expected them to try to sell me a timeshare in that building by the end of the film. They had featured all, like, it looked so great. Shopping mall, art gallery.
Oh, I mean, I do not understand what the dystopian element of this building is. I want to live this life right now. Poltergeist. I don't care what kind of spooky shit you throw, spooky Magoo shit you throw at me. I still think this is a utopia, not a dystopia. And nothing in the film convinces me otherwise.
It's a complete and total Reaganite utopia fever dream. Like, you just live somewhere that you never have to leave.
Yeah, but it's the stuff Reagan was saying that, is actually impossible in the real world and is a smokescreen for depriving people of things.
Right.
However, I get the attraction, and if I could manufacture it without hurting anyone else, I'd live that life. The problem is it depends on hurting other people, so that's where it all falls apart. That's why it's a utopia.
Oh, fuck. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you have differing thoughts about the Poltergeist series, you're going to have to let us know. How do you rank these movies? Are they good or bad? Send us an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com or find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions and Matthew Aldrich, screenwriter, legend of Hollywood, I'm Michael Shantz of the How Dare You
I am the
Awards.
Kane of Hollywood.
Yeah. Say goodbye, boys.
We're back. I don't know what I know that's Kane saying that, so it shouldn't sound like that. But I have a feeling Kane should have probably said it that way for full impact.
It would have been perfect.
I don't know about you, but I saw that inversion coming a mile away. I wish I'd written it down before it happened, because I spent the first sort of 20 minutes of Poltergeist thinking, how are they going to flip the catchphrase this time? And I guessed we're back.
Yeah.
I guess it was going to be them saying we're back, not her. Not her. I really genuinely thought that's what I would do in that situation.
Oh, wow.
If I had to rewrite it. There we go.
All right.
Everyone's a screenwriter.
Only one of us is getting paid for it, though.
Only one.
That just says my ability to trick others. That has nothing to do with talent or anything. It's just my Svengali skills.
Hey, yeah.
That's all.
As Will Sampson's Taylor says at the end of Poltergeist 2: The Other Side, this is an illusion.
All right, everyone. Stay tuned.
Double quotable there for you.
Yeah, there you go.
Oof.
Stay tuned. Poltergeist 2: The Other Side is our next episode. Until then.
Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe 2 craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.